Everybody loved this man, but he had a dark secret, and that secret was about to come out.
Non-apologetic
Nonsense.
So I was making my commute here today, and I got caught behind a school bus. Got me thinking about when I was a kid, right? See, I lived way out away from the school, so the bus ride was probably about 45 minutes. And over the years, I always had the same bus driver, right? This guy named Clay. Clay hated me. And that's because I was a terror. You know, I was one of them kids who would be throwing stuff off the bus. You know, I'd be fighting with other kids. This guy would make sure, you know, he's the type, you're going to pay for this, you know. So I'd constantly be getting, you know, kicked off the bus. I can remember anytime I'd get in trouble on the bus, they'd be like, you can be suspended from school or suspended from the bus. I'm like, dude, suspend me from school or give me SWATs. Because if I got suspended from the bus, the punishment at home was amplified because now my parents had to go out of their way. Someone had to get me to school for that time period. Now, this driver, like I say, he hated me, and it's good because of what winded up happening. Everybody loved Clay, right? He was a volunteer firefighter, and he was the fire chief of a local city here, Oronogo, near where I am. I mean, this guy's literally running into fires. He was heavily involved with his church, right? I mean, this guy was just flat out beloved. Everybody loved this man, but he had a dark secret, and that secret was about to come out. So this is junior high now. There was this kid. This kid was strange, right? He was weird. He didn't have any friends, right? Now, he wasn't weird because he didn't have any friends. He didn't have any friends because of how weird he was. Total school pew-pew type vibes, right? And I can remember his locker was, lockers all the way down a certain hall. His was like across from mine in catty corner a little bit. He just seemed sad, right? So I tried to just BS him in the hallway, you know, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? This and that. All he'd ever talk about is fishing trips, right? He would go on fishing trips with his buddy. Even as a child, he was deliberately secret about who this buddy was, right? It was almost like when you probe him, it was like, I got a girlfriend, but you don't know her. She goes to another school type thing. It might be Monday, and he'd be super hyped. Hey, this weekend I'm going on another fishing trip, and we're going to catch bass and da-da-da. And when I'd ask him details about it, I can remember him talking about a canoe, right? And he'd tell me where they were going, and we're going to take a canoe out there, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and no one's around. The area he'd take the canoe to, it was just weird for people who were going fishing. To be honest with you, I thought the kid was lying always, you know. I just kind of thought, I don't know. And then it comes to light, you know, kids make fun of other kids, call them gay, you know, you're gay. But it came to light that it seemed like this we were junior high at this point, that the kid was gay, and that pushed him further sort of into obscurity. So I tried talking to him a little bit more. And, I'd bust his balls a little bit. I'd be like, so is that fishing trip with your boyfriend? Assuming he'd just kind of get mad. And he was like, yeah, that is the person I'm seeing. So this went on for quite some time. But here's the kicker. He started wearing a jacket to school. This, I can remember it perfectly. It was a maroon windbreaker with the Oronogo firefighter logo on the back. Like that's weird, especially like say my bus driver's Oronogo firefighter, and on the back it actually had the guy's last name, the firefighter, the bus driver's last name. And I'm like, what in the fuck, dude? And he's like, yeah, I think they had met through the church. I'm not exactly sure where they met, but there was like an after school type program, and Clay would mentor certain kids. So I'm like, that's weird, right? And people would make fun of him and shove him into lockers about this. But every day, I don't care if it was, our summers get well over 100 here, he would wear that maroon Oronogo volunteer firefighter jacket. So, like I say, I'm still riding the bus at this point, still getting kicked off. I mean, this guy absolutely, he just flat out hated me. One day, the bus driver's not there. It's substitute bus driver. And, it's substitute bus driver. You're busting their balls. You're giving them different names. You're doing this and that. But when I get to school, what had also happened is that kid was no longer there. Accusations started coming. Words started coming around, parents saying to stay away from the bus driver. Maybe these fishing trips aren't as innocent as they seem, because that's who the fishing trips were with when it came out. It was this barely even a teenager and this grown man taking him out there alone. Eventually, the kid comes back to school, which I imagine was strange because everyone knew what happened at this point. And that kid, he was still wearing the volunteer firefighter jacket. So the bus driver, he loses his job, of course. He gets ousted from the church. And he also had, the bus driver had a daughter who was in our school. I believe she was a little older. Everybody disappeared. They winded up moving to, I was very young, to the best of my knowledge. I don't think they were held accountable on a criminal level. But when that kid came back and he had that jacket on and everybody was, giving him shit or what have you, he came out and said that him and the bus driver were in love and that these fishing trips were just a way for them to have their sexual escapades out on the boat in the middle of nowhere. So he winds up catching so much shit in school that the kid, the victim here, he winds up leaving and doesn't come back until years and years later. Same with the bus driver. I heard probably about the time I graduated high school or so that his family had moved back into the community. It's almost like a tale as old as time, right? It's these people who are most trustworthy, firefighter, school bus driver, heavily involved in the church. I can't remember if he was a pastor. It seems these are the people to watch out for, especially around children. I mean, how many times do you hear about like the Catholic Church, right? That old joke. And for those who don't know, what the Catholic Church did is when what are they call them, preachers there? A pastor. When they would get caught doing some heinous stuff like that, they would just relocate them in hopes that it wouldn't come out. And when they relocate them, they don't tell the people where they're going that this is why they've been relocated. So in other words, they just set them loose on a whole nother gaggle of children. As I was sitting behind that bus today, I don't know, something got me thinking about kids' safety. And I hadn't thought about this in a very long time. But once I started thinking about it, it's just on my way here, it all sort of came back, and especially the vision of that jacket, the audacity that A, the grown adult gave it to a child, B, that the child was okay with wearing it. I mean, think about that. You know whose jacket it is. The name is on the back. A child is going to school wearing it. And then even after the accusations, like this kid wasn't upset. He was like, nah, this is the love of my life. As I'm sitting there behind that bus today, it made me wonder what happened to that kid. Not what happened, like where's he at in life? Like how did this affect him? Is he choking animals out? Is he continuing the cycle he was in as an adult? Is he perfectly fine? Did he OD and pass? And like I say, I knew the bus driver personally. He was my bus driver for, a decade. And I had a lot of run-ins with him because of the trouble I was in. He'd sit me down and give me talkings to. It just apparently my talking to was different than other talking to he was doing. So at the end of the day, I do wonder what happened to that kid. But I am also very thankful that I was such a terror of a child. Because otherwise, I mean, I was prone to be right there in that same position that this guy was, except for the fact that A, I doubt the bus driver would have thought that I could be trusted. B, I was such a little asshole that he probably thought I'd tell. I don't know. It's just a good thing he hated me, or I could have been full on assaulted. But yeah, I don't think he ever faced consequences, not to my knowledge. It is crazy School bus driver's supposed to be the one to protect, but yet in this case, he is the one who hurts. So just remember, if you have children and they are around anyone, it's always the most wholesome, righteous, and sad to say religious people that do this. Get the wiggles just even thinking about this story. But I hope that, speaking of story, I hope that the story of the kid ended well, and I truly hope that the story of the firefighter ended terribly.
Non-apologetic
Nonsense.